Hey, it's Holly, and we are on the third love lesson. And the first one was 17 hugs, and the second one was adding in positive statements into the hugs whenever or even without a hug. You can give a statement without a hug. That's totally legal. See how flexible we are here? So today I want to talk about something that I learned firsthand as a kid and didn't even realize it until later. And that is the power of the overheard word. And I think about like the power of gossip, how it's so easy when you hear it, when you overhear two people talking about it, you just assume it's true. Like it has validity because two people are like, I don't know why our brains are like that, but it does. When you think about it, if you overhear something, it has more power than if somebody had come directly to you and said it. And maybe it's because you assume it's something they wouldn't have said to your face. So when I was in 6th grade, and like I can remember this like it was yesterday. I was in 6th grade and I was asleep in the back of the car. I don't know why we were driving two cars. I think we lived up in Washington State, but we were in Oregon mountains for a vacation. And I guess there was so many of us that we had multiple cars. And I happened to be the only kid, which is why I was stretched out in the back of the, because that was back in the days when we didn't have car seats and we didn't have seat belts and stuff like that. But anyway, I was laying in the back of the seat, and my mom and my great aunt who lived with us, my Aunt Olivia, they were in the front seat. I think my mom was driving and Aunt Olivia was sitting in the front seat. And they thought I was asleep. In fact, I remember them like starting this conversation with, "She's asleep, isn't she?" And they were like confirming, to each other I was asleep. And then they went on to say some extremely powerful words that changed my life. They were talking about how good I was. Is that amazing that when they think I'm asleep, they were just saying like, saying things like, I'm just really proud of her. And I was having a rough year in 6th grade. There is no lie. That was one of the roughest years of my life. And they were acknowledging that and saying, even though it was a rough year, Holly has these character traits that were really amazing. And then I remember something that they said, and they said, "She's so pretty." And that was the first time I had ever thought of myself like not as a hideous animal. And you know how like preteens and that can go. And so I am so thankful that I heard those positive words about myself, because it wasn't something that my mom would have ever said to me. That wasn't like the childhood I had. I had a magical childhood, but there wasn't a lot of communication about that kind of thing. And it's not something my Aunt Olivia would have ever said to me. But the fact that I overheard it, it made it true in my mind. And from then on, my life, I lived it like it was true. And so what I want you to think about and be strategic about is the overheard word. Is if you can sneak in some sort of tidbit that your kids are overhearing, you have to be sneaky about this, because if they know what you're doing, it's not going to work. And they know what's going on. But if you can say to your partner or your husband every once in a while something that you kind of whisper that they overhear, that can be a very, very powerful statement, something that they would not have believed that you said if you had just said it directly to them, if that makes sense. And kind of like bragging on them to somebody else. This works really well on the phone. Like if you're in another room and you think they're not listening, and you talk about, you're just saying, I'm really proud of my son. He got a 98 on that test. I couldn't believe how hard he worked on it all by himself. That would be more powerful than you even going to him and saying the same thing. So anyway, I want you to start thinking about how you can be super, super sneaky. I know, mom ninja skills here, to give those overheard statements that can really, really help replay what your kid is saying to themselves inside their head.